It was a bright Monday morning, and the office building buzzed with activity. Executives hurried through the halls, secretaries answered phones, and the aroma of fresh coffee filled the air. Chuck Norris, dressed in a simple suit, entered the building with a calm, confident stride. He didn't rush, yet every step seemed purposeful, almost magnetic. People glanced at him, sensing his quiet authority, even if they didn't know exactly who he was. As Chuck approached the conference room for a high-stakes meeting, a junior manager stepped in front of him. "Excuse me, sir, you can't come in," the manager said firmly, folding his arms. His tone carried authority, but also a hint of smugness, like he believed he was protecting the room from a nuisance. Chuck paused, his expression calm, but eyes sharp. "I'm here for the 10 a.m. meeting," he said evenly, with the team handling the Pacific Investments deal. The manager frowned, scanning Chuck briefly. "Sorry, I don't recognize you. Only people on the approved list can enter. You'll have to wait." A few employees nearby exchanged awkward glances. Some whispered quietly, sensing the tension. Chuck smiled faintly, a calm, almost imperceptible smirk. He didn't argue or raise his voice. Instead, he simply said, "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need to be in the room for a moment." The manager scoffed. "Rules are rules. No exceptions." Chuck's gaze didn't waver. Every person in the vicinity could feel the weight behind it, the quiet confidence of someone who had faced far bigger challenges than a single office confrontation. There was something about the way he stood, calm, unshakable, and in complete control of himself. But inside, the manager's confidence began to falter. Something about Chuck didn't fit the profile of a regular visitor. He didn't know it yet, but blocking Chuck Norris from entering wasn't just a minor mistake. It was about to set off a chain of events that would leave the entire office stunned. What the manager didn't know would blow his mind, and everyone watching would be left speechless. The manager's eyes narrowed as he studied Chuck Norris. He leaned back slightly, crossing his arms, convinced he was in full control. "Look, I don't know who you are, and frankly, I don't care. Only people on the approved list can attend this meeting. Please step aside." Chuck's calm gaze never wavered. "I understand you're doing your job, but this meeting is crucial. I'm directly involved with the Pacific Investments deal." The manager's smug smile turned into a thin, dismissive line. "Pacific Investments? Sorry, you'll have to wait. I'm not letting anyone in without clearance." A few employees nearby exchanged glances. Whispers spread. "Who does he think he is?" Some began reaching for their phones, sensing something unusual. Chuck noticed their subtle glances, but ignored them, focusing entirely on the manager. Chuck's posture was relaxed, but the intensity in his voice made it clear. He wasn't asking politely out of fear. He wasn't showing anger either. Every word carried authority, as if he had faced countless bigger battles and come out unshaken. "Sir," Chuck said, his tone steady and deliberate, "I'm asking you to reconsider. The deal I'm managing is valued at over $300 million. A delay, even for a few minutes, could cost the company millions and affect every employee in this room." The manager's jaw tightened. I don't know who you think you are, but rules are rules. You're not on the list. That's final." Employees began whispering more loudly. Phones appeared in hands. Cameras turned toward the scene, capturing the confrontation. Some were discreet, some obviously filming, sensing the tension growing into something extraordinary. Chuck took a slow step closer. "I'm not here to break rules. I'm here to ensure the company doesn't make a critical mistake. Please allow me into the meeting." The manager laughed nervously, a sound that failed to hide his growing doubt. "And what if I don't? You think showing up will change anything?" Chuck didn't answer immediately. He simply smiled faintly, as if letting the manager stew in his own uncertainty. His presence alone seemed to quiet the office, a magnetic calmness that drew attention without any force. A secretary whispered to a colleague, "I've never seen anyone handle him like that. He's not ordinary." The manager, feeling the room shift against him, tried one last bluff. "Security will escort you out if necessary." Chuck's eyes twinkled slightly. "I'm not worried about security, but the employees here should know what's really at stake." At that moment, Chuck glanced around, his attention landing on the cameras now rolling. Everyone watching, take note. I'm asking a simple question. What would you do if someone underestimated you or blocked your way without reason? Type your city or country in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from as this unfolds. The manager froze for a split second, realizing that not only were employees watching, but the entire room had begun silently rooting for Chuck. His previous confidence, the kind that made him believe he was untouchable, began to crack. Chuck didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He simply remained calm, composed, and unwavering. Yet every person in the office could sense the weight of his words. Something about the quiet confidence, the steady assurance, made it impossible to ignore. Employees exchanged looks again. Who is he? Some whispered. Some remembered seeing him in past news or online. Yet, for the manager, it was too late. He had already misjudged the wrong person. Chuck's patience was measured. He wasn't angry, but he wasn't leaving either. He was letting the situation unfold, letting the manager realize, moment by moment, that this wasn't just a visitor trying to bluff his way in. This was someone whose authority, influence, and calm intelligence commanded respect, even without raising a finger. As the tension in the room escalated, it became clear to everyone watching. The manager had no idea who he was dealing with, and this mistake could be his undoing. The manager's misjudgment is about to push the situation to a breaking point, and Chuck's response will shock everyone in the room. The office atmosphere had changed. What had started as a normal meeting was now charged with a heavy, almost electric tension. Every whisper, every glance seemed louder than usual. The employees who had once gone about their tasks now froze, their eyes glued to the unfolding confrontation between Chuck Norris and the junior manager. The manager, feeling the weight of all those eyes on him, straightened his posture. "I don't have to explain myself," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "You're not on the approved list. Rules are rules. Step aside." Chuck Norris remained calm, standing tall, arms at his sides, his presence commanding without force. His calmness was almost infuriating to the manager. Chuck's eyes met his, steady and unwavering. "Sir," Chuck said evenly, "I'm here for the meeting that concerns a $300 million deal. My presence isn't optional. Millions of dollars and the livelihoods of countless employees depend on what happens in the next hour. Blocking me won't stop that reality." The manager's confidence wavered for the first time. He glanced at the other employees, hoping someone would back him up. But the room had shifted. People were whispering among themselves. Who does he think he is? Why is the manager acting so nervous? One of the employees dared to speak softly. "Sir, maybe we should let him in." The manager's face turned red with embarrassment. "Enough," he barked, attempting to regain control, but the sound of his own voice seemed weaker now. Chuck took a slow, deliberate step forward, closing the small distance between them. He wasn't threatening, yet the power of his presence was undeniable. "I'm not here to disrespect you," he said quietly, "but stopping me is pointless. You can either cooperate or watch the consequences unfold, calmly and professionally, without anyone getting hurt." At that moment, the manager's frustration peaked. He pointed his finger at Chuck, voice rising. "I don't care who you are. You will leave this room or face consequences." Chuck didn't flinch. He tilted his head slightly, almost curious, and spoke in a calm, commanding tone. "Do you understand that true power isn't measured by threats, but by clarity, patience, and knowing your own authority? You've already begun to lose yours." The room went silent. Employees exchanged looks of awe, some nodding subtly in agreement. Phones were being held up discreetly, recording every second. The manager realized, somewhere deep down, that he had made a colossal misjudgment. Chuck's calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the manager's rising panic. Every word Chuck spoke seemed to weigh heavier than the manager's raised voice. The tension was no longer just professional. It was psychological. The audience watching the videos on phones, or in the room, were silently trapped in the drama, holding their breath, wondering, what will Chuck do next? The manager's hands shook slightly. I'm in charge here. You don't just walk in and..." His sentence faltered. Chuck gave a slight smile, not condescending, just confident. I'm not walking in to steal your control. I'm here to ensure it is respected and used correctly. That requires understanding what matters and who matters. At that instant, one brave employee finally spoke up. Sir, maybe we should hear him out. He clearly knows what he's talking about. The manager looked around, realizing the tide had turned. The room was no longer his ally. The whispers of employees had grown into subtle murmurs, almost a chorus of support for Chuck. Every eye on him silently acknowledged one truth. Blocking Chuck Norris was no longer a decision. They were witnessing something extraordinary that if you were in this office, what would you do in Chuck's place? Comment below and let us know. Don't hold back. Your response might be featured in the next video. Chuck didn't push further. Not yet. He simply waited, letting the weight of reality settle on the manager. Every pause, every measured look, magnified the tension. The manager, now cornered psychologically, was about to make a choice, one that would either redeem him or cement his embarrassment. The employees leaned in, the silent electricity of anticipation crackling through the air. Chuck Norris had created a scenario where calm authority completely overpowered bluster and fear. And everyone in that room knew, deep down, that the manager had no idea who he had just tried to block. And then, a single whisper in the room changed everything. The identity of Chuck Norris, the man who controlled the $300 million deal, was about to be revealed, and the manager had no clue. The office had gone completely silent. Even the low hum of air conditioning seemed louder than usual. Every employee's eyes were glued to Chuck Norris and the flustered manager. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife, and every heartbeat seemed amplified as if the building itself was holding its breath. The manager tried to regain composure, clearing his throat. I still don't know who you think you are. Before he could finish, a young analyst sitting near the back of the room whispered under his breath, almost nervously, "Wait, isn't that Chuck Norris?" The words spread like wildfire, passing from one employee to another in hushed tones. Chuck Norris? The Chuck Norris? Whispers turned into astonished murmurs. He controls the Pacific Investments deal. $300 million? The manager, still facing Chuck, remained oblivious. He continued to assert his authority, but the cracks in his confidence were now visible. Beads of sweat appeared on his forehead. His eyes darted to the employees, hoping someone would quietly back him up. But the employees were frozen in shock, some looking openly amazed, others whispering to their neighbors, phones subtly raised to capture the moment. Chuck, noticing the shift, did not gloat. He didn't raise his voice, nor did he make any overt displays of power. Instead, he smiled faintly, a calm, knowing expression. His quiet authority had spoken for him long before anyone even realized who he was. "Sir," Chuck said gently, "it seems there's a misunderstanding. Perhaps you're unaware of who you're speaking to." The manager's eyes flicked nervously to a few of the employees, who couldn't hide their astonishment. A junior executive leaned over to whisper, "You don't know? That's Chuck Norris, the one controlling the $300 million Pacific Investments deal." The manager blinked. "Wait, what?" The whispers grew louder. "He's the deal maker. He's the guy everyone's been talking about in corporate circles. This is the same Chuck Norris who handles negotiations no one else can." Suddenly, the power dynamics in the room shifted completely. The manager, who had been confident just moments ago, now looked small, insecure, and unprepared. Every word he had spoken to assert authority now felt weak, even laughable. The employees, once silent observers, now subtly aligned themselves with Chuck. Their phones were recording, their expressions wide-eyed, as if they were witnessing history unfold. Chuck took a deliberate step forward, maintaining the same calm demeanor, but his presence seemed to fill the entire room. "I understand that you may not have recognized me," he said softly, "but my role in this meeting is critical. The success of this $300 million deal depends on cooperation and respect, not misunderstanding or misplaced authority." The manager's lips parted, unsure what to say. He swallowed hard, realizing the room's energy had shifted irreversibly. His attempts at intimidation had failed. Instead, They had revealed his lack of awareness and understanding. Employees exchanged knowing glances, murmuring, "You didn't even need to yell. Just being calm makes him more powerful than the manager." The whispers now included awe, fear, and admiration all at once. Chuck's reputation had silently entered the room before he even spoke about it directly. If you were watching this unfold, what would your reaction be right now? Type it in the comments. Be honest. Imagine seeing someone underestimated like this in real life. Chuck didn't exploit the moment with arrogance. He remained composed, letting the room absorb the revelation naturally. He understood that true authority wasn't about showing off. It was about letting the facts speak for themselves. The manager, now visibly shaking, took a step back. His eyes met Chuck's, and in that moment, he realized something crucial. He had been outclassed, not through aggression or shouting, but through quiet mastery and undeniable competence. Phones continued rolling. Employees whispered among themselves. The story was already becoming legendary in that small office. Even without leaving the building, this moment was spreading faster than any email memo ever could. Chuck Norris had turned a simple office confrontation into a lesson in respect, authority, and calm power, and the manager was learning it the hard way. The manager thought he could control the situation, but Chuck's next move will completely humiliate him, right in front of everyone, and turn this $300 million deal into a lesson the office will never forget. The office had fallen completely silent. Every whisper, every rustle of papers, even the faint tapping of a keyboard, seemed louder than ever. The manager, still trying to regain some semblance of control, was frozen mid-sentence. Chuck Norris didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need threats or gestures. His calm presence alone commanded the room. "Let's be clear," Chuck began, his voice measured, steady, and carrying an almost magnetic authority. "I am here for one reason, to ensure this $300 million deal succeeds. Not because I want to dominate anyone, but because I am responsible. And responsibility comes with respect, for people, for process, and for truth." Heads turned, eyes widened. The employees felt the weight behind every word. Chuck didn't yell. He didn't insult. He simply spoke the truth with clarity, so sharp it cut through the manager's misplaced bravado. The manager, trying to defend himself, raised a finger. I just, his voice faltered. Every word sounded smaller than before, almost absurd. Chuck tilted his head slightly, listening, calm and unshaken. "Do you understand?" Chuck continued. "That authority is meaningless without knowledge? That confidence is hollow without competence? You assumed I was just a visitor. You assumed your position gave you power over me. And yet here we are, proving exactly how dangerous assumptions can be." A collective intake of breath spread across the room. The employees leaned in. Phones were recording. Cameras were catching every subtle shift of expression. They could feel the manager's power slipping like sand through his fingers. Chuck's gaze swept across the room, meeting the eyes of every person present. Respect isn't given to the loudest or the strongest. Respect is earned through integrity, knowledge, and composure. And those who wield authority without understanding, he paused, letting the silence hang like a weight in the air, often end up embarrassed in front of those they thought they controlled. The manager's face had turned pale. His fists tightened, but he realized instantly, arguing here was futile. His threats had no power against calm mastery, and the room itself was quietly siding with Chuck. Employees whispered among themselves, "He's right." The manager had no idea. "This is insane." Chuck took a step closer, measured, deliberate, but not threatening. "You see, the $300 million deal isn't just numbers. It's people. It's trust. It's responsibility. And every decision we make here affects hundreds of lives. My role isn't optional. It is essential. Blocking me was never an option. But correcting this moment, now, that's your chance." For the first time, the manager's mouth opened, and no words came out. He had no defense. Every attempt to assert dominance had failed. He had underestimated Chuck Norris, and now the office knew it too. Chuck didn't gloat. He didn't raise his voice or celebrate. Instead, he extended a hand toward the manager, not in mockery, but in calm professionalism. "It's not about proving who is stronger," he said. "It's about understanding responsibility, respect, and the power of knowledge over arrogance." Employees who had been tense and anxious just minutes ago started murmuring in agreement. Phones continued rolling. Every subtle smile, every nod, every shocked glance contributed to a growing energy in the room, a mix of awe, admiration, and relief that reason had triumphed. If you were watching this unfold, how would you react to someone being underestimated like this? Type your response in the comments. Don't hold back. Imagine the tension in the room. Chuck's calm authority had completely shifted the dynamic. The manager's embarrassment was now undeniable. His earlier bluster was meaningless against someone who carried quiet confidence, undeniable knowledge, and moral authority. The employees could feel it. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was a masterclass in handling authority, humility, and responsibility. The manager swallowed hard, looking down at the floor. Chuck's words had pierced through his ego, silently teaching a lesson that would linger far longer than any reprimand or rule. The room had witnessed more than a confrontation. It had witnessed a reversal of power without a single act of aggression. And then it happened. The moment everyone had been waiting for. The manager finally realized exactly who Chuck Norris was and the $300 million deal he controlled. The tables turned instantly, and what followed left the office completely stunned. The office felt like it had stopped breathing. Every single person in the room was holding their attention completely on Chuck Norris and the fluster manager. Employees who had previously been silent now leaned forward, some with their phones recording, others whispering frantically to colleagues. Everyone sensed that the moment of truth, the revelation of Chuck's true authority, was about to arrive. The manager, still trying to regain control, opened his mouth again. I don't understand." Chuck held up a hand, stopping him without raising his voice. "I think it's time everyone understands exactly what's at stake." He paused, letting the silence grow. Every eye followed him. Every ear hung on every syllable. Then, in the calmest possible tone, Chuck said, "Not only am I here to lead this meeting, I'm the person directly responsible for the $300 million Pacific Investments deal. Every negotiation, every decision, every contingency plan has been reviewed and approved by me. And that includes this meeting." A stunned gasp swept through the office. Employees' jaws dropped. Some clutched their phones tighter, realizing the scene they were filming would soon go viral. The manager's face turned a deep shade of red, his earlier confidence now completely dissolved. The whispers grew into audible astonishment. "Wait, the Chuck Norris? The $300 million deal? He's not just anyone." Chuck's gaze swept the room, calm but commanding. "You see," he continued, "blocking me was never an option. Misjudging people based on assumptions, arrogance, or superficial impressions can only lead to embarrassment and failure." The manager opened his mouth, attempting to stammer something, but no words came out. Every attempt at authority had already crumbled. He was outmatched, not by aggression, not by yelling, but by the undeniable combination of competence, composure, and respect that Chuck carried effortlessly. Chuck turned slightly toward the employees, his expression gentle yet firm. "This moment isn't about humiliation. It's about learning. Leadership is about understanding who matters and why, not asserting power over those who quietly hold it. Respect and knowledge are far stronger than bluster and ego." Phones continued recording. Employees whispered to each other, their excitement growing with each word. Some were smiling, some shaking their heads in disbelief. They had been witnessing a lesson in authority and humility that went far beyond any ordinary office confrontation. The manager, still pale, finally slumped slightly in his chair. His earlier attempts at intimidation and control had completely backfired. Chuck's calm revelation had flipped the room, shifting the dynamic entirely. The audience in the office, and soon to be the viewers online, saw firsthand the psychological power of presence, patience, and knowledge. Chuck didn't raise his voice or gloat. Instead, he extended a hand to the manager, a gesture of professionalism and respect. "Learn from this," he said quietly. "And next time, consider that appearances and assumptions are not reality. Leadership is earned, not imposed." The manager hesitated, then accepted the handshake, his pride bruised but a subtle nod acknowledging the lesson learned. The employees around them erupted in quiet applause, some clapping openly, others recording every detail for social media. If you were in this room, how would you react to witnessing someone underestimated like this? Type your response in the comments. Be honest. Imagine being trapped in this tension, seeing a calm master like Chuck completely flip the room. Chuck stepped back, letting the attention shift fully to the manager. The message was clear. Arrogance and assumptions crumble under true competence and calm authority. The employees whispered to each other, still recording. Some realized this was a story they would never forget. Others knew that this video would spread like wildfire online, inspiring millions who saw it. The manager's embarrassment was complete. He had tried to assert authority, only to realize that true power doesn't shout. It commands quietly, confidently, and with knowledge. The room had been transformed. The balance of power had shifted, and Chuck Norris, calm as ever, had orchestrated the perfect silent lesson. And just like that, this office confrontation went viral. Millions would soon see the $300 million deal story unfold, praising Chuck for his calm mastery and teaching everyone a lesson about respect, authority, and humility. The office was buzzing like never before, but the tension that had gripped it minutes ago had transformed into awe, admiration, and a deep sense of respect. Employees whispered, chuckled quietly, and exchanged glances that said one thing clearly: we just witnessed something extraordinary. Phones continued rolling. Clips of Chuck Norris calmly confronting the manager and revealing his control over the $300 million Pacific Investments deal began circulating immediately. Within hours, the footage was shared across company chats, social media groups, and professional networks. The story wasn't just about a confrontation. It was about humility, competence, and authority displayed with calm mastery. News outlets and corporate blogs picked up the story. Headlines screamed variations of Chuck Norris turns office chaos into $300 million masterclass. Manager blocks Chuck Norris. Instantly humiliated. Calm over ego. How Chuck Norris handled a $300 million deal. The manager, now fully aware of his public embarrassment, faced not only the scrutiny of his employees, but also attention from higher management. HR and executive teams reviewed the incident carefully. Policies about recognizing authority and preventing workplace misjudgments were swiftly discussed, all prompted by this single moment of oversight. But the real impact wasn't just the embarrassment. It was the lesson. Employees everywhere were inspired, seeing how calm authority and knowledge could command respect far more effectively than shouting, intimidation, or ego. The office, once tense and hierarchical, became a place buzzing with renewed energy. People realized that true power lies in competence, patience, and respect for others, not in attempting to assert dominance over someone who knows their worth. Chuck himself remained modest. He didn't boast about the deal or the viral attention. Instead, he used the moment to reinforce a principle he had lived by his entire career. Respect is earned through action and integrity, not assumed through position or title. Employees shared clips with friends and colleagues worldwide. Within a single day, the video had gone viral. Comments poured in from across the globe. Wow, calm and powerful. That's how real leaders act. If only all managers could handle situations like this. I literally felt the tension watching this unfold. People admired Chuck's ability to turn what could have been a humiliating, tense confrontation into a lesson in humility, authority, and respect. Viewers were mentally trapped in the narrative. They had witnessed tension, drama, revelation, and resolution, all from an office confrontation. The manager, while still embarrassed, eventually approached Chuck privately. I understand now, he said quietly. I misjudged the situation, and you. Chuck nodded, a small smile of acknowledgement on his face. The lesson had been delivered without arrogance, without shouting, but with absolute clarity and composure. If you believe no one should be underestimated, type respect in the comments. Share where you're watching from, and tell us what you would do if you were in Chuck's place. Subscribe for more insane real-life office stories and lessons in authority, humility, and power. By the end of the day, the story had reached millions online. People from New York to Tokyo, London to Manila were sharing and discussing it. They marveled at how a single man, calm and composed, could turn an office confrontation into a global lesson on respect, intelligence, and authority. Chuck Norris had reminded the world of a simple but profound truth. Power without understanding is meaningless. Authority without respect is fragile. Calm mastery is unstoppable. And through this viral office story, that lesson was now etched into the minds of everyone who watched, mentally gripping them, emotionally inspiring them, and leaving them unable to look away. The office, once ordinary, had become legendary. The manager had learned humility. Employees had learned to respect true authority. And the world had learned a lesson in dignity, patience, and the unstoppable force of calm mastery.